Hey everyone, Hurricane Liz here. We're live with Jared.
Hey, everybody.
How are you, JT?
Yeah, doing well. Liz, how are you?
Great, fantastic. So for those of you that do not know who JT is, I call him JT for short. His name is Jared Tendler. He's author of a best-selling poker book called The Mental Game of Poker, which I consider the Bible to playing poker. A lot of people would probably agree with me if they've read it, but I also recommend this book to people that are not just poker players, but people that are in business and or day trading or any kind of thing that really requires your mindset, and the mindset being the most important thing. Very underrated actual thing to build. I mean, I would think that, wouldn't you, Jared?
Yeah, it's underrated in people's attempts to kind of do it appropriately. And I think a lot of times people are just sort of looking for more technical knowledge, as a day trader, as a poker player, as an entrepreneur. And there's no doubt that, the technical knowledge of what you're doing in your business is essential. Right? The mind is not that powerful. We've talked about this before, right? The Dalai Lama is not a great golfer. So, you can't just, will yourself to make money and to do great at whatever you're trying to do. So you need the technical knowledge, but, the mental piece is a big component, comparable to, being an out of shape, running back in the NFL. Eddie Lacy last year didn't do so hot, lost a bunch of weight, and he's going to kill it this year. So, your mind is as important as for business people, for poker players, for people who are not really using their bodies as their, mode of making money. You've got to keep your mind in good shape, and that's kind of where I come in.
Awesome. Well, which brings me to the topic that I wanted to cover here. Obviously, Jared does not know about these topics beforehand. I sort of make them up, and I send out this to the email list. He doesn't have access to actually reading that, which I make sure he doesn't. That way he's kind of caught off guard. But I've talked to him very briefly about my wild weekend, and it brings up the actual topic. He's known that I've had problems with this in the past, but really the bottom line is, Jared, as I told you before, I told a lot of people, I had a very wild weekend. I had business partners in from out of town that are part of OMG, and they really, when they hit Miami, they like to hit it hard. And what I mean by that is they like to go out 5 straight nights or 3 straight nights. So that means it consists of 3 nights to go out and party, and they're really out there, getting out there, having lots of fun. And what it causes me to do is I almost go straight into vacation mode. I'm in vacation mode, full throttle for 4 or 5 days. And then when I get back to reality come Monday, or in this case, Tuesday, since 4th of July was on Monday,
Yep.
Very hard for me to get back into the whole grand scheme of things. I start off really slowly, and it's kind of almost me scurrying to get caught up. And at the end of the day, it frustrates me. So I guess it's a little bit more or less the way I look at it is it's a somewhat of a problem with motivation. So I thought maybe it was, maybe it's not, but maybe we could cover motivational type problems. And so a lot of the problems that people have suggested here is, you'll hear about a few of those in a minute, but a lot of people have said that they struggle with the same thing, Jared. So what do you think in terms of my problem, first of all, and how other people that struggle with vacation mode, as we like to call it, what's your best nugget of information you can share with them?
Yeah, I mean, first off, you're dealing with a hangover. I mean, there's no doubt about that, right? So, and so like, what's the consequence of being hungover, right? It just means that you're not operating on all cylinders. Mind's not functioning quite as clearly. Not to mention that you've got this sort of 4-day gap where you've been enjoying life, and a lot of us work really, really hard so that we can enjoy ourselves. And then we get in that space, you kind of want to stay there perhaps a little bit longer and really enjoy yourself. So you can have a little bit of tension coming back from that time off, not to mention that your mind is not quite as sharp. But if you think about it, comparable to an athlete, except for like baseball pitchers would be, a bit different, because they've created a routine where every 5-6 days, they're going out and trying to execute, but if you were a hitter in baseball, and let's say you were on the disabled list, couldn't actually practice or do anything for 4 or 5 days, and then you're right back into a game, the odds are that you're going to be a little bit rusty, especially if you're going up against, one of the elite pitchers in the league, right? You're just going to have, your senses be a little bit dulled. You're not going to see the ball as easily, so there's my point is that we all develop rust, whether it's mental or technical or physical. And so what you're doing at that time is you're trying to get back, is you're reconnecting to some of the, let's say, uh, weaknesses that you've got, whether, let's say, mentally, weaknesses like tilt or anxiety, or even some motivational issues. You're talking about some technical weaknesses. So there may be some things that you're doing throughout your day that are less efficient because you're kind of tending towards some bad habits that you've been trying to get yourself out of. But, you know, when you're mentally weaker and a little hungover, it's easier to slip back into that. So when you have a clear idea of the things that you're trying to improve on mentally, technically, could be in terms of your productivity, then you sort of show back up on that first day back, and your job that day is to just get better at that stuff. If we're dealing with a motivational issue, which could be part of what you're dealing with here, is getting reconnected to your goals is an important part of that. So that's like a kind of a specific correction. And I say that because a lot of people forget that, or don't even realize that you kind of have to learn what your goals are, right? It seems like they should be obvious, and they are obvious on a day-to-day basis when you're in a really good rhythm and routine. But when you come back from a vacation where your goal is to enjoy your life, you are shifting back into your business-related goals. And that takes a little bit of shift, like a mental shift to get reconnected to that. And it's not automatic. Now, if it is, it means that your business goals are super clear and there are no questions regarding them. But if it's not, then there may be some weakness with regards to what it is that you're setting out to achieve and what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. And you know what, Jude, which brings me to another really important question a couple people have here, but I'm going to get back to that a little bit later. That is enjoying your life. But for now, I see a couple other people that are posting other motivational type problems. So maybe if I
yeah, fire away.
Okay, so I've got one, Debbie here talking about recently she dislocated her wrist. She had surgery and she had to stay pretty much still and was highly medicated. So as a result, it's been difficult working on her particular business and keep everything going. It feels like issues keep popping up and she's struggling with figuring out what to do. It's very discouraging. I'm sorry, I can't even speak today, Jared. I'm running a couple cylinders too slow. It's very discouraging. I am doing everything I can to make it. In fact, even her daughter is helping her. I know I need to stay positive. So what could she do to kind of break through some of that? It seems like it is a mental problem. Just but you tell me, you're the expert.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to shy away from it being as simply about, trying to stay positive. Positivity can make things easier, but it can also hide underlying weaknesses. And the thing that I would want to figure out is part of the difficulty you're having an expectation that you ought to be able to do more, right? Is there, in essence, tension in your mind between what is reasonable for you, given the fact that you're medicated, right? So I'm assuming it's pain medication, which is going to dull your mind and not allow you to be as sharp, and then simultaneously being immobilized. So there are real limitations that you're dealing with. And so is there tension between that reality and what you want to be doing? And if there is, then part of it is accepting your current reality. Doesn't mean that it's going to be your permanent reality. It just means that you're trying to get more out of what you're capable of doing rather than fighting up against, the realities of the ways that you're limited. So it's tough, right, to accept that. I'm sure it's not fun to be in this situation, but in my experience, a lot of people who go through things like this often learn things that become advantageous for them in the future. If you view this as just entirely a problem, one that is, something that you're just basically trying to escape and trying to avoid, then not only are you going to be less efficient, your mind is going to be filled with more tension, and then you're also going to lose the opportunity to perhaps learn something, about your business and about, perhaps having people helping you. It sounds like you're working normally under normal circumstances for yourself, and so maybe it's been harder for you in the past to delegate responsibility to people. Something that's a lot of people have trouble with. They want to have more control over their business, and delegation is a difficult thing. I'm not assuming that's the case for you, but I'm suggesting that that would be one example where you can see how the current situation might prove advantageous for you in the long run. So that's one thought or a few.
Jared, which brings me up with the thought from my book. So Jared doesn't know that, but I do have a secret book of thoughts here. But anyways, my thought is just, I have, as most of the people that are on this webinar know, that my mother is 60 years old and she's not able to work. She's not on disability or anything. She just has a autoimmune disease that prevents her from doing that much. And largely a reason that I got into the Amazon business was because of the fact that she decided to do the Amazon business and she couldn't actually do all the things involved. So she basically outsourced some of the tasks to me. She began to delegate things to me, and that's sort of how I just kind of almost like fortunately jumped into the Amazon business. But the thing that I was going to say is it reminds me a lot of her situation. So one of the things about my mom is she's always been just a hardcore jump in there and do things kind of person. She takes massive action, and she's been used to actually doing everything herself. So as a result, as she's gotten a little bit older, just her age and her disease have caused her not to be able to do a lot of those things. And mentally, it's sort of taken a toll on her because she feels useless. At times she would feel useless and just no good for nothing because she wasn't able to accomplish as much as she used to be able to do in the past. But as Jared said, this reminded me of the exact same situation. She decided to begin delegating things to either me and or pay some people to do things for her, and it kind of like helped her a lot. But it really made me think of the same thing. As I said, my mom struggled with that until she realized she could outsource things to people like me. So maybe something that Debbie needs to do is write down things that she can still do. Maybe she can just sit at the computer and take care of all the tasks that she has to in front of the computer, and then outsource some of the heavy lifting to her daughter, maybe incentivize her daughter. I know that certainly works with me a lot of the times when somebody incentivizes me.
Yeah. Yeah. And building off of what you just said, I mean, if we go back to the idea of being positive, maybe in this case, the idea of being positive is just simply acknowledging what you can do and then building from there. And maybe one of the other side benefits is that forcing yourself to do this delegation, forcing yourself to sit down and understand what it is that you can do and what needs to get outsourced, maybe gives you a better understanding of your overall business as a whole, and gets you thinking about the business, from a more of a macro perspective. As entrepreneurs, it certainly is a struggle for me at times. We get too much into the weeds, and really taking that step back to think about, the overall trajectory of the business is something that can be hard to do. So in this case, you're not thinking about the future of the business, you're thinking about the business structure. And by doing so, maybe you'll come up with some efficiencies or better ways of doing things, or maybe you'll find, that outsourcing some of these really menial tasks becomes more enjoyable for you. You actually like the business. And then when you start feeling better, you continue to outsource this because, you're finding more value in using your time elsewhere.
Right, which also brings up something that I thought about. Recently, I read something maybe it was something that somebody commented on Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. One of the things that when we become entrepreneurs, one of our ultimate goals, I know for me, it was like have extra time, have extra money, have freedom to do whatever the hell I want. And I do pretty much do a lot of those things. But for many people, what winds up happening is they work so much that they actually work more than what average people do. And that defeats the entire purpose of becoming an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, again, we want extra time with our family, we want freedom, we want money, but we almost wind up being a slave to our business. I mean, that's what usually happens because of the fact that a lot of us have trouble with just giving some control up or delegating. And I know for a fact that I did this in the past quite a bit. And now, even to this day, you can even ask my assistant, Rob, over there. He'll even tell you, still to about a year ago, I was a complete control freak. I still had to do everything myself. And guess what? A lot of it got back the hell up. And now him and I are paying for it. Him and I, a third guy that works for me, are paying for it because we're having to catch this all up and create systems and things that I almost dropped the ball on. So it's something that as an entrepreneur, it's almost something that we have to face. So I know I certainly done that. I know you do that as well, Jared. I know that you put in a lot of extra hours just with your books and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, building equity in a business is kind of what I'm after. It's something that I go back and forth because I mean, as a coach, I feel like I'm a salaried employee. When I'm writing books, I feel like I'm building equity in my business and building equity in my life. So there's, short-term money, long-term money, that's sort of the constant tension. And it's something that I think I'll always have because I always like working with people one-on-one. And I also like to be able to be building equity so that I can, have more residual income, have more of a stake in my future. And so, yeah, I think, look, I mean, my sister is my assistant. I've got, Barry Carter, who's written books with me, and I consult with lots of other people regarding, marketing topics, including you, Liz, and work, my work on this next book is going to require, editors, designers. I'm constantly outsourcing things that I can't do because it would be completely impractical to do some of the more technical stuff beyond.
Absolutely. So sticking on the topic of motivation, Jared, we got another one here. This is coming from Angela, and she says she purchased 2 wrong private label products last year, and she's finding it hard to stay motivated as she's not seeing the results she's accustomed to seeing in the past, and time is an issue. Never had motivation problems before, so having a hard time getting it together.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's, twofold. One, you're dealing with a lot of problems, which is not fun. You essentially made 2 mistakes that have not only cost you a lot of time in terms of your actual time dealing with these, but also in terms of the growth of your business. Because if you don't have the right products, you're clearly not able to progress in the way that you want to. So my guess is that there is some hang up mentally that you have maybe with the mistakes made and perhaps have not really fully analyzed why they were made and kind of what led you to make those decisions, what you could fix in terms of your analysis, what you've learned from those 2 products that would help you to actually make a better decision on the third. Plus, you may be getting, as a result of that, a bit pessimistic that you're going to be able to find the right product. And there's no way to really find the right product if you haven't done, that hardcore analysis. So I would say that motivationally, your efforts may be just kind of focused in the wrong direction. That what you need to do most right now is to get kind of at the root of why the mistakes were made, and perhaps why there has been this sort of tension in pulling the trigger the third time around. Again, expectations could be part of it. Could be some fear of failure or some anger, self-criticism with yourself. I would look at what that is, because from a technical perspective, doing the analysis that I suggested is really what's going to be necessary to make the right next move, which is clearly critical to your business.
Right, which reminds me, one quick thing for Angela is that if Angela didn't already know this, my very first 2 private label products were complete duds, and they eventually sold. It took them a year to sell, but I certainly wasn't happy with the results. But I took that as a source of motivation to find my next product and continue marching forward, because I knew at that point I had the certain skill sets that I would have never had without having those products. So I sort of thank my lucky stars for learning the hard way. Had I not learned the hard way, Jared, had I been like a lot of people that jumped into this business and got super lucky with their first products, because at the time there was no competition, sort of similar like poker. A lot of people jumped out of the poker tree. There was no competition. They got extremely lucky, and that luck almost was detrimental in the long run, because now those people are having a hell of a lot of trouble selling products. And if you can sell products today on Amazon, you can sell products whenever the hell you want, wherever you want. So that's a really big thing for Angela. I would take that and just light a fire and keep on going. That's pretty much what I did. My first 2 products, complete pieces of crap. So
yeah, so you bring up, I think a lot of people deal with that as well. So not just Angela. I mean, and so there's a possibility that there may be some loss of confidence, right? And so that confidence can then, create some pessimism. So again, really take a step back and try to understand what those mistakes or failures have done to you on an emotional level, and try to dig in and correct it. I mean, that sounds easy to say, but that's really the necessary step. And so, again, on the surface, it feels like a motivational issue, but I think it's really not one. I think it's either being hung up and not learning from the mistakes, or there's some high expectations or some loss of confidence in there.
Right. And the other last thing that I wanted to mention to Angela, which you reminded me of too, Jared, is that one of the things that I continued to do while I had 2 failures for products is I stuck to my wheelhouse. So those 2 products were an experiment. They might not have worked, but I stuck to the things that were still making money for me. And it's almost like I was moonlighting as an Amazon product seller until I was able to actually sell full time. So I was still doing some of the other things that would make me money, like retail arbitrage and things like that. It's not the sexiest of things. It certainly is not fun by any means. It takes a lot of work and energy, but I was still putting in all those extra hours just so that I could finance all my private label products until I finally got the hang of it. And then eventually at some point I ditched them all together. So that's what certainly did help me along the way.
Makes sense.
So Jared, with that being said, let's jump into these it's a kind of an entirely different topic, kind of the opposite topic. We've got Josh here saying he's working hard every day and he's feeling like he's neglecting those around him to achieve his goals. Friends invite me to parties and I always say maybe but never show. Should I be more motivated to preserve my personal relationships? Should I find a balance or keep grinding till I make it? These questions I don't fully understand the answer to yet.
I would define what making it means, and I would look for some benchmarks that would start to allow you to have more of a personal life, before you quote make it. Because I don't think there's really like this finish line that you're ever going to achieve. It's somewhat mystical to think that way. It doesn't happen that way in reality. Because once you, let's say, have $1 million in the bank, or have $100K, month, or have a 10K month, whatever the benchmark is that you think is making it, there's always going to be more, right? There, until you have your financial future completely locked up and preserved, then you're not really making it. And my guess is that's going to be quite a long ways away. And once you actually get there, it's certainly possible that your lifestyle changes may have grown along with it, in which case, the finish line may have moved. So there's always going to be this kind of chasing your tail if you think there's this mystical finish line. So what I would look at is looking at some benchmarks whereby you can start to give yourself more freedom. And it's not like you have to wait until you've made it. And it's not perhaps right now where, you're still struggling to stay afloat. Again, I have no idea where you are now, but the point is, I don't think it's a problem when your business becomes your whole life. I mean, if you want to be successful, like people in any industry, there are choices that have to be made. People often describe them as sacrifices. I don't look at it like that. You're making a very clear choice that this is your top priority. The people that really care about you will understand that. And you want to just make sure that you communicate that to them and give them some kind of a time frame. They may not agree with your choice, but if they're quality people who are right, and good friends, they're going to understand. And yeah, so you give up, some short-term opportunities to have a lot of fun, but you're also giving up a lot of opportunities to have a lot more fun in the future, if you sacrifice your growth in this business.
Right now, which brings me to a very good point here, Jared. I kind of feel a little bit bad. Josh is actually one of my assistants. So, Josh is, I guess, complaining. Obviously, I overworked the crap on him. I'm going to have to give Josh a couple extra days off, knowing that. But one of the things that I found is I've always had this problem, and you of all people know this, Jared, with balancing my personal life, with balancing my professional life. Because I know Josh, I recognize his talent. That's why I hired him. He's just such a motivated person. I know that. I told Josh this. I don't doubt that by the time he's 25 years old, I would bet money on the fact that he will be a millionaire. So I think for Josh, he's got the same mentality that I used to have at that age. And as you know, Jared, I used to put in a ridiculous amount of hours when I was playing poker, but most of those hours were actually spent away from the table. And for the longest time, I fought Jared on this. He will tell you that firsthand. I didn't want to take a vacation. I thought that I should play 7 days a week, 10 days an hour. 10 hours a day, sometimes even 12, sometimes even 24-hour periods where I would just play constantly. But one thing is I certainly didn't do a lot of things with a lot of friends because they were out partying, having fun. I wanted to make it, but really when I made it there, I was like, wait a minute, where did I make it to and what's going on? So what really hugely helped me out a lot is finding balance between my personal and work life. And the way I would do that is people that I wanted to have relationships with, I would carve out time for them during the week. And so I had a set period of time that I would spend on my personal life. Like, let's say in Josh's case, he's got a girlfriend. So if this is a girl that he's serious about, he should probably set some time for her out, maybe for date night once or twice a week. Same thing with the relationships he has with his parents. And sometimes he can't work for Liz 24/7. Not that I'm making him work 24/7. I just wanted to point that out to everyone. But Josh has still got a very long life from, he's 19 years old, Jared. So
yeah. So just to the girlfriend point, I mean, yeah, I get the need to have it, but you've got to make choices. So, you know, maybe now is really not the right time to have a girlfriend, or at least have a girlfriend who understands what it is that you're trying to accomplish and is willing to see you once a week, or maybe not see you that week. I mean, again, it depends on what's going on. It depends on what your priorities are. I mean, at 19, like, you've got a lot of time, you know, to be enjoying yourself. And at the same time, you've got a lot of opportunities to be enjoying yourself now. There's no doubt there's a quote balance, but that balance doesn't mean that your time is split. You know, balance is a reflection of what your goals are, both personally and professionally. So, you know, yeah, there are choices to be made. I think you got to take a step back and really look at, you know, what is right for you right now. And you're going to get some feedback. You know, if you spend a lot of time with your friends and family and you see your careers, you know, still skyrocketing, then that's the balance that works. If you see that it's not, then you got to make some changes.
Right. It brings me another interesting thought I just had, Jared. You're going to love this one. The fact that you just told Josh, maybe it's not the right time to have a girlfriend. Actually, I was speaking at the Alex Becker event, and in the front row, a lady, you know, picked up her hand and she asked me, she basically told me that her husband really wasn't on board with her being an entrepreneur. He just thought it was all a bunch of baloney, and people that made a lot of money selling things to her. So he was encouraging her not to continue doing this. And she was like, you know, I can't, this is what I want to do. And he was like, no, you can't do it. And she asked me, what would you do in that situation? I'm pretty sure Jared knows what I would do. What would I do in that situation? I'm just curious to know what you would do, Jared, or what you would think I would do.
Find a divorce lawyer.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly what I told her. I told her, maybe you're not married to the right person. Everybody in the audience went just bananas, and she kind of like blushed and kind of was giggling herself. But really, at the end of the day, that's what it was. I basically told her, look, if your husband's not on board now, he's never going to be on board. He's always going to be that just vulture hovering over her shoulder. And if she fails, he's going to be the first one that tells her, I told you so. And if she succeeds, I don't know. I don't think that that's a very good atmosphere to succeed. So I told her that exact thing. I told her, you need to find a new husband. And while everybody thought it was like, oh, that's terrible, sometimes it's true. But Josh, I know that I need to give you a couple extra days off. I'm going to call you as soon as I get off this webinar.
Well, regarding that woman in the front row, I may not have been quite as a hard line with it, but I do agree with you that, you know, husband is going to need to make a shift. And sometimes the threat of divorce can get somebody to really understand that you're taking this seriously. Doesn't mean that you need to divorce them, but you would need to at least stand up for yourself and fight for it. And, you know, and you know, you think about what that means from a leadership position. When you're having somebody dictate your life, it means that you're probably not going to run your business quite as efficiently or as effectively as you would. So, you know, standing up for yourself within the context of your marriage would be a good thing for your business. Even if the marriage survives or doesn't matter as much from a business perspective about, you know, gaining the confidence or, you know, the leadership to be able to take control or command of your life and your business.
Right. And that's pretty much it. We're out of time here. I see there's still quite a bit of questions, but don't worry, guys. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to write these down somewhere, and next week we'll be back for 30 minutes and we'll get covered all the questions we did not. In the meantime, if you didn't make it on time and you're watching this, the replay on YouTube, post your questions and comments below and I will put those on the list. And next week, Jared and I will be back ready to tackle them. We'll see what other exciting things happen to me. Certainly, I will call up Josh and see what kind of exciting things happen to him since he's tuned in here. And as always, Jared will be here giving his expert input. So, Jared, any last words for everyone out there today?
No, I just hope I don't get hate mail from Josh's girlfriend.
Let's hope she doesn't send you a surprise package or anything, Jared.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, last words of wisdom, I'd say, knocking the rust off, just set benchmarks. Like, you will knock the rust off kind of getting back into it slowly. But you'll go through that process slower if you're expecting too much of yourself. So, get better at that process. Look at it like a skill in itself. Back in the day, I'm dating myself here a little bit with the old game show, Name That Tune. How many notes did it take for you to know what song it was? Well, how many days or how many hours does it take for you to get back, sharp? If it takes you a day and a half now, well, next time around, see if you can make it a day and an hour, or, only 4 hours or 5 hours within that day. Make it a little bit of a challenge for yourself. And that will, dramatically increase your efficiency with it.
Right. Fantastic, Jared. Well, thank you very much. And I will see you guys next week. I will be back in full throttle mode, marching straight ahead. As always, I've always found a huge benefit talking to Jared once a week. That's why I used to pay him the big bucks. And as he said before, I was trying to pull a fast one on him. And I'm the one that's making out like a bandit because of the fact that I get him on here every week for 30 minutes. So every time I talk to him, I'm super fired up. I'm ready to take on the world. And I hope you guys do the same thing. Utilize this. There's plenty of people asking questions, and they're getting answered by an expert who charges hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour, has worked with some of the top minds in the poker community, in the golf community, and in business and trading. So you guys should take definite advantage of that and ask them questions. So keep posting the comments and let us know how you like it. But until next time, we'll see you guys later. I'll be marching straight ahead. See you, JT.
Take care, everybody.